So thank you for Carolyn suggesting that. And then if you could start, oh, perfect. We're good then.
Well, I haven't got the things I normally have here. It's a bit weird. Can't see that. It's got a meeting is being recorded sign over the bit that I want to see.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing that. We're seeing your Washington Butterfly Association Study Weekend 2024 preview slide.
Probably I can change it to
Presentation mode.
yeah, presentation mode.
Yeah, I see it and my screen is up in the left, top left.
No, it's not on mine. So
Yeah.
Can you click OK to the message that it's being recorded?
it's not a clickable message. It's just permanent. Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, got it back. All right. I think we're set. Okay, so this is my preview. This is well, this year's very different, obviously. This is a bit of an adventure and something different for us, I guess. I mean, we have had a conference early in the season like this before. I remember one down the gorge some years ago. It was very successful. We saw lots of butterflies, and that was early June. This year, being the weather that we're having, it's a little bit more worrying, I think. Although, as we've heard, it is going to warm up at the weekend, so it should be warm enough for butterflies. My scouting trip took place last Wednesday, Thursday, and I tried to pick days that were going to be good. And the second day wasn't bad. It was still cool. It was only in the low 60s, and at least the sun was out. But the first day was like being in a cyclone or a hurricane. It was just the wind was just blowing everything off the landscape, and the few butterflies I saw were hunkered down in the grasses, trying to keep out of the wind. Um, so yeah, we're not in the mountains this year. I guess that's the thing. We're in the Scabland Wonderland, and so the first day I checked out Rocky Ford, which is Upper Crab Creek, which is a place a few of us know about. We've been there for a couple of 5 years now. I think John Bowman introduced us to the place, and this is the place where a colony of silver-bordered fritillaries occurs. And so I was familiar with that place. I took Bob there actually a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But after that, really had no idea what else to see in Lincoln County. It's not a county that I've explored. So I looked at Google Earth and the maps and stuff and sort of picked a few areas. And luckily, I found a couple of places that I thought were pretty good, at least scenically. And they're full of promise for butterflies too. I wondered if anyone else had been to these places. And of course, John Bowman knows about them, and a few other people have been there. It's definitely a diverting landscape. I think back to when I first came here 25 years ago and thought the landscape was pretty rubbish, but I've grown to love it. And this part of Washington is pretty spectacular. I mean, you're not expecting to see water. Well, I wasn't expecting to see much water, but out there you can imagine yourself, in somewhere completely different. And of course, if you've got water and lots of sunshine, you've got butterfly potential. So, the time that I was there doing the scouting was not good weather butterfly wise. So my numbers of species, etc., are not good. But we have the potential with the weather that's coming at the weekend to significantly improve on that. Let's go back. So yeah, my 2-day scouting trip, 29th and 30th. The Scabland landscape, in my limited experience, appears to be drier than what I've experienced in the last 5 years or so. So there is that. It doesn't look. It also looks a bit delayed as well, and that makes sense, of course, with the weather we've been having. A lot of cool weather has slowed things down, and so flowers that are normally flowering now, like blanket flower, Gaillardia are just beginning to bud and come out. They probably will be by the time we get there, but normally they're in full bloom at the end of May. So butterfly populations were low, but as I said, the weather was not optimal, cool and windy, and things will get better, even more so than when I wrote this a few days ago. We now know it's going to be pretty hot at the weekend, and people are getting worried that it might be too hot. And so I'm sure some additional species will appear by June 7th to 9th. So, because the season's a bit delayed up there, that there's a number of species I didn't see that I should have seen that hopefully we will see. So what will we see? Normally Rocky Ford, the only place that I'm familiar with, we would see at this time of year somewhere between 20 to 30 species. So for a shrub steppe habitat, that's pretty good. For the last 2 years, I've had when I've given this talk, I've talked about the species of the weekend, which is the one species we cannot avoid and will see. So in 2022, it was the pale tiger swallowtail. Last year it was Lorquin's admiral. So what is it this year? It's this friend, Milbert's or fire-rimmed tortoiseshell, as I prefer. They were at all the sites, and all new generation, fresh individuals like this. So if you like Milberts, then you're going to love this weekend because you're going to see plenty of them. And all the sites, all 3 sites, have a lot of stinging nettles around. So that's why they are in abundance, because they've completed the first larval generation and the new adults are just appearing. And I imagine with the heat that's coming, there's going to be even more than I saw a few days ago. So that's our butterfly of the weekend. So our provisional plan is to go to the 2 new places, and they are Coffee Pot Lake and Twin Lakes. So I don't know if anybody in the audience has been to those places, but I certainly hadn't until last week. And that's, seeing those 2 places, we have to drive about 50 miles to get there on good roads, fast roads, until right at the end. But they would take the whole day. So we figured that would be the best for Saturdays, to see those 2 places. And then on Sunday to go to the Upper Crab Creek Rocky Ford site, which is the familiar site that quite a few of us know about. So there's a map just showing we're staying. Rocky Ford is there. We sort of travel here and along this road to Rocky Ford, Upper Crab
We
Creek.
can't see a map, David.
Sorry?
There we go. Thank you. We can see the map now. We couldn't before. We're good.
Okay. And so on Saturday, we'll go past Rocky Ford onto Harrington and then take a road out to Coffee Pot Lake. And it's a tar road, surprisingly. I thought, well, this would be dirt road, but Coffee Pot and Twin Lakes, when I was there, I was virtually alone. There's a few people at Coffee Pot. There was nobody at Twin Lakes. But of course, on a hot weekend coming up, we could expect to see rather more people. But we'll see. There's quite a bit of space for parking, and there are trees around too, in case we need shelter and shade in both places. So we should be okay, I think. Okay, so I took pictures, of course. The places, Coffee Pot Lake, this is both places are BLM land. And so, yeah, geologically, my daughter Jasmine's now a geologist, and she's coming to join us on Saturday, I think. So she'll enjoy this if she hasn't seen it already. She's probably seen it, I guess, but she'll be able to tell us about the geology. And, vistas like this, really, I haven't seen anything like this in Washington close up. So, with the flowers on the beach as well. I mean, it's quite remarkable. And hopefully we see lots of butterflies. There was some Juba skippers in this area and some blues, but not, a whole bunch because it was cool at the time. But there's the Milbert's tortoiseshell that we won't see enough of, or we might see too much of. On common woolly sunflowers, which are common at both places, and a avidly used nectar source for most of the butterflies that were flying. And there's an Acmon or Lupini, I think Acmon blue. And there was other wildlife too. I'm not a bird person at all, but now I've got a good camera with a good lens. I tend to take bird pictures too sometimes and report them on iNaturalist as well. I've become addicted to that, like a lot of people have. And iNaturalist told me this is an eastern kingbird. So for the bird lovers amongst you, there's other birds there too. There's being water. There's lots of birds around, and of course dragonflies and damselflies too. And then so after we've been at Coffee Pot Lake, we'll move on to Twin Lakes, and we travel through drier area, but it's still flowering. It hasn't completely dried up, and there's some wetter areas too. So it might be worth stopping there for a brief period of time as well, which I did, and saw some euphalotes dotted blues. And there's some wetter areas too. I see a place like this out there where I think maybe not many butterfly people have been to, immediately think maybe there's some silver-bordered fritillaries here. There wasn't at this spot, but maybe they hadn't emerged yet, or it was just too cold. So, I think it would be worth stopping along the road to Twin Lakes. And this is Twin Lakes coming down to the Twin Lakes. As I said, when I was place to myself, which is quite remarkable, really, I think. This is Twin Lakes again. There's plenty of water, not only in the lakes, but in streams and rivulets between the two lakes, with mudding going on. Not much mudding because it was cool and butterflies didn't really need to, but we should see a lot more mudding butterflies this coming weekend, of course. And the first butterfly I saw there was arrowhead blue, which is always a favorite of mine to see. And I saw a number of these there. So if you haven't, not very familiar with arrowhead blues, you're fairly certain to see that species this weekend. There were some marbles too, and possibly both large and desert marbles. I didn't get a good enough look at all the marbles I saw, but there was certainly a big range in size. But of course, sometimes the large marbles are not actually large, so I can't be sure about that. But that's something that we can look forward to checking to see if just one species of marble is there, or whether both species are there. And there's a lot of pollinators around generally, and this is my favourite, bumblebee. I don't know if David Jennings is in the audience. He's probably sick of seeing the Nevada bumblebee, but I love seeing this huge bumblebee. It's the largest Western US bumblebee, so you can't mistake it, and it's always good to see him. There were quite a few there last week at Twin Lakes. And of course, the damselflies and dragonflies around the water, of course. Sorry?
How big are those bumblebees?
I didn't catch that.
How big are they? What's their length?
Oh, about an inch and a half, maybe in length. They're pretty big. Just over an inch, maybe not a half, but they're very sizable. Okay, so on Sunday we'll go to Upper Crab Creek, Rocky Ford, which is the site we've been familiar with for a couple of years now, and mostly because it's a site for silver-bordered fritillaries. Like I said at the beginning, this site seems more stressed than it normally is at this time of year, drier. Even though a lot of the plants haven't flowered yet, they look stunted, and they are going to begin to flower, and probably things like Gaillardia will be flowering this weekend, but there's definitely not as much moisture in the ground as I've been used to over the last few years. As I say, usually we see between 20 and 30 species just at this site. So hopefully, we get up to 20 at least. I think I saw, well, the day I was here was the tornado, cyclone, hurricane day. So I think I saw 7 species. I'll go through the species in a minute, but yeah, with sunshine, we should see a whole lot more than that. This picture here sort of shows the wetter areas, which don't even look that wet. They're greener, and this, I think, where my cursor is where the silver-bordered fritillaries are. And even that area, the silver bordered area, and I haven't been here, I must admit, for the last 2, 3 years, it does seem to have changed somewhat, as things do. Succession and habitats do change. And there's definitely been some invasion of weedy species within what used to be the best area for the fritillaries. And it looks drier too. That might be just a seasonal thing, but there was also some evidence that the butterflies, the fritillaries, were in a different area than they were before. So it will be instructive and interesting on that day to actually have a closer look at where the silver borders are, because I think whenever we've come here, we've always concentrated on the one spot. I did once explore further away, without too much luck, but I think I was too late. But there's definitely potential for other sites within this general area, particularly to the east, where the cursor is over there, where there are other wet areas where the fritillary might also be. It doesn't make sense for it just to be in one spot. There probably are other little populations around. Otherwise, it probably would have gone, extirpated a long time ago. So there's a lot, needs to be surveyed and done at this site, to be honest, in regards to that species. So, this, as I said, the landscape looks drier even in the wetter areas. So this is another wetter area that we haven't really explored for the silver borders, and they could occur here too. This isn't very far. I think this is the main site is just over there. And this is a shot taken within the silver bordered fritillary site. So you can see it's a lot more lush, if you like, but even so, it's not as lush as it normally is, believe me. But one of the indicator species, I think, is the blue flag iris or blue iris or whatever it's called, Missouri blue iris. Wherever they occur, the silver bordered seem to occur. And without them, they're not there. So there's and there's a yellow flowering plant as well that I haven't identified yet that fits that same category. Those two species and the silver bordered seem to occur, all together. And if you lose any of them, then you lose all three of them. That's another shot of the area too. And there's the yellow plant I was talking about. We can identify it at the weekend, I hope. And also there's violets there too, which is key for the silver bordered fritillary, of course. And so, you have to go looking for them, but they're not everywhere, only in the wetter areas, presumably. And of course, being the larval host for silver borders, they're crucial. And there's the butterfly, our star of the weekend. I imagine some people may not have seen the silver bordered fritillary because it's not a species you see everywhere every day.
David, would you go back to the violet for a minute, please?
Sure. I think it's probably marsh violet. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so. Palester, probably, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Moxie bog was that species.
Yeah,
So
I think it's Palester.
okay.
I don't know the Latin name, but the northern bog violet, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
David?
Yes.
Also,
Yes.
would you talk a little bit about the fragility of that moist area? And since we're gonna...
I'm getting to it, Melanie. I've got a slide I put in just for you.
Thank you.
I only saw 4 or 5 individuals, but as I said, it was terrible weather. And if I scared one and they flew up, they just got buffeted straight down by the wind. So I didn't really want to scare too many. But the thing that worries me slightly is that none of them were fresh. I thought, they might be fresh at this point, but they look like this one has been flying for a little while. So I hope we're not at the end of their flight period, but they do seem to have quite an extended flight period in most years. So just a bit of a worry I have there. But as Melanie was mentioning, this is a sensitive site, particularly the spots that I'm talking about, the actual habitat where the fritillaries seem to occur in. I mean, it's remarkable really because you might see them on the margins, the edge here where my cursor is, and over the other side, just right on the edge where there might be some flowering plants that they're using. But you don't see them way beyond. They're really strictly, the fidelity to the wet area is quite remarkable in all the times that I've been there anyway. So this is their habitat. And we don't want everybody walking through the area, of course, because there's not much of it. And we don't need everybody to walk through. We can have a few people, you know, 1 or 2 people going in to catch 1 or 2 that we can bring out and show everybody else. Because we don't, you know, the violets are there, and there, if it is towards the end of the generation, then they will have eggs and larvae, young larvae perhaps. So we don't want to trample them. And the species is a species of greatest conservation need, the Fish and Wildlife designation. So we need to respect that. But as I said before, we should explore around and look at some of these other wetter areas with the iris and the other yellow flower, and see if we can find any other locations nearby, because I'm pretty sure this can't be the only spot. And there's the butterfly we're going to see all weekend. It was there, even despite the wind. That was the only species that was actually able to combat the wind. You know, it would hunker down a lot, but it was able to actually maneuver. And there's the source, plenty of nettles. I couldn't find any evidence of caterpillars, and I don't know that many red admirals have gone through, but you know, nettles are always good to have a look at to see if you can find any caterpillars. Yeah, there they are. And this is, you know, this is still a slide in the same place. There's on one side of the site, getting towards the road, there's a few trees, and it's a wetter area. I'm not sure where the water's coming from, but an underground little, you know, stream. I don't know about it. It's not actually a visible stream. It must be underground, mostly water, but it's allowed big trees to grow and survive over the years. And so you got this very different looking habitat. And this becomes home to other wildlife. You know, in the open shrub steppe, you get other things like this great horned owl chick. I think it's a chick because it looked fairly young. It didn't know how to fly. I scared it. It landed in a tree and looked like a sloth, whatever, hanging upside down. And I managed to get a few pictures, of course. And then a coyote wandered through too. So I told you I was alone out there, but I guess I did have some company. Yeah, this is the other nectar source that the milberts were using, and I imagine when it's warmer, this will be inundated with milberts. They seem to like this wild onion greatly. Okay, so some of the species I saw, both at Rocky Ford and the other 2 places, I think there's only a total of 17 species I saw, but the weather conditions were not good, as I keep saying. But the good old cabbage white is, I don't think I saw it at all sites, just one of them, maybe Coffee Pot Lake, I think I saw it at. The marbles I've mentioned already, large marble, definitely, possibly desert marble. And we'll have fun determining the differences. It's been a long time actually since I've seen desert marbles, and this picture's from years back when we're working on the Life Histories book. But you know, we'll have hopefully Bob with us in the field and other experts, and we'll be able to identify them, separate them if the desert marble does in fact occur there. Sulfurs, saw orange sulfur for sure, and also I'm pretty sure I saw clouded sulfur as well. So we will see sulfurs. Purplish copper is usually very common at Rocky Ford. I didn't see it there, but probably because of the weather. I found it at the other 2 sites. It seemed to be very fresh. So again, it's one of these species that's delayed. It should be flying, and you know, has been for a few weeks, but over there it seems to be just emerging. And there's the upper view. The Acmon lupinoids, or whatever Bob called them once, which I like, because I really, when I don't have much time, don't spend too much time trying to separate them. When I spent years trying to do that, and identifying them and then giving them to Dave Nunnally, he'd dissect them and find the opposite. So, you know, really dissection for me is the only way to be totally sure. But I'm pretty sure Well, again, this is something we can look at and see if we have both species there. I'm sure we have Atmon. I'm pretty sure this is Atmon. But we may have lupine blue there too. I was walking 11 miles and I wasn't looking, analyzing every butterfly I saw. This was a holistic attempt at butterflies. The common blue, Bois blue, was again, well, actually, I think these look fairly worn, so they've been flying for quite a while. And I didn't see too many of them, so they may be at the tail end. I didn't see any silvery blues, but again, they could be there, but at the end. And the arrowhead I've already mentioned, we will see them, and they look pretty fresh. Euphalotes, Cascadia blue. I had trouble with Columbia and Cascadia. I think I put this on that list as Columbia, and Merrill Peterson says it's Cascadia. So, and I can see what he's talking about, I guess, and not quite as, the Cascadia tends to have blocky black dots more than Columbia, and in the Yakima area, they're blockier and blacker than this individual here. But we can have fun with Euphalotes because I'm pretty sure Columbia's there too. And then I already talked about Milbert's ad nauseum. Painted lady, I found one very old migrant still nectaring and probably laying eggs. It must be almost time for the new generation to emerge. I think I've seen on iNaturalist some fresh individuals somewhere in Washington. So the warmth might bring out some new ones at the weekend. And there's our star of the show, silver bordered fritillary, the underside this time. I couldn't get a picture of the underside the other day, but that's, really beautiful underside. And that's why we need to net a couple so that we can all see the underside if you haven't seen it before. And even if you have, you want to see it again. And the ochre ringlet, of course, this was ubiquitous. And again, it's another species that does all right in the wind, apparently. Keeps fairly low to the ground, of course, but common at all sites, so we'll see them. And common checkered skipper. A lot of these butterflies, and there's another one, the common sooty wing, called common, but really, I don't see many of them anymore. I wouldn't give them the name common. I mean, even 25 years ago when I first arrived here, they were common. I did see them commonly. The first place I lived in, I found them in my backyard, both of them. But these days, I struggle to find them. So it's always good to see the common checkered skipper. And this was at least 2 of the 3 sites. So we should see them. Juba skipper was common at all sites. So yeah, we definitely get to see Juba. And this is the other common, the common sooty wing. And I think I saw one of these flashing by at Coffee Pot Lake, not flashing by, but well, it's going pretty fast. I mean, they're small and blurry. So I'm pretty sure it was a common sooty wing because they're flying now in Yakima. So hopefully we can, and I didn't take this shot of this one last week, but hopefully we can get a better view at the weekend. So now, they're all the species I saw. So the species we might see, and this isn't an exhaustive list. I mean, I could list everything as I often do, but I've already spoken quite a while already. And I was surprised to learn that Lincoln County has 85 species recorded there. But of course, a lot of them are going to be out of season or out of habitat from where we're going. So I'll only mention the ones that we have a more than decent chance of seeing. I didn't see any tiger, any swallowtails, full stop. But that was probably a function of the weather. A bit surprised I didn't see anything on the second day. But, in the water, in all the spots, I think there's willows. Yeah, all the spots, there's a bit of willow. It's not hugely abundant, but there's enough around that you'd think there might be tiger swallowtails, both the western tiger and more likely perhaps two-tailed. I don't know about chokecherry. I don't think I saw chokecherry, but so they're possible. And a swallowtail, yes, you'd think you would. I mean, they're still flying in most eastern Washington habitats, looking very worn and jaded, of course, but they're still flying. I would have thought we would see this. Who knows? Oregon swallowtail. I don't think I saw the host plant. I mean, you know, it occurs at Lower Crab Creek and some other, you know, similar places. It occurs at the Yuma skipper habitat, whose the name of which I'm running a blank on. But so it is possible, but I didn't go looking for the host plant to see if that occurred there. Moving on to the whites, Western white, which is, you know, something that should turn up in most of these habitats, you know, eastern habitats. I didn't see one the other day, but Becker's white, I think I might have seen Becker's white, but I wasn't sure about that. And there is apparently new individuals, new generation individuals occurring in some parts of eastern Washington now, judging from my naturalists. So that's a possibility. And with the warmth coming this weekend, that may encourage their appearance. And moving on to Lycaenidae, the coppers, blue coppers, a possibility. There's plenty of buckwheats in all the habitats we're going to. Not overwhelming numbers of buckwheat, but significant, mostly compositum and Heracleoides buckwheats. So yeah, the host plants are there for blue copper. And ruddy coppers, you know, the habitats we're going to are, you know, perfect for ruddy copper. But, you know, I go to many perfect habitats for ruddy copper in eastern Washington and don't find them. So it's by no means a guarantee. But and I did see docks, the host plant for their larvae at least the lake sites. So it's a possibility. Maybe, I mean, this is the time they begin to emerge. So we could be lucky. And they're always spectacular to see with their incredible orange colour. The grey hair streak seems to be having a bad year this year, judging from everybody's reports that I see. And I've seen a handful, you know, nowhere near as many as I usually see. So something happened to survival of grey hair streaks over the past 6 months or so, I guess, because they were fairly common last year. But, you know, this is a ubiquitous species that you would expect to see just about everywhere, including the places we're going to this weekend. So hopefully we do. I don't know about this one, Sylvinus. Again, we're in the right habitat, but again, it's something that may or may not be there. It's not everywhere by any means, but one to look out for. Greenish blue, we're probably at the beginning of the emergence period of that, I think. Maybe slightly too early, but again, with the warmth we're getting, it could, you know, bring out things that are just waiting to emerge.
David,
Yes.
can we go back to Sylvanus, please? I think you've got both of the forms shown there, right? The common gray-brown form, and then
Yes.
the very silvery one,
Right.
which tends to be more restricted in willowy habitats in the
Right.
Central Valleys.
Right. Yeah. I used the slide last year at Ponderay and forgot to adapt it and take that out. Yes.
Have you seen the very pale form in
I see.
these habitats?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen the very pale form around Yakima. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
around Yakima, but have you seen them in the anywhere near the Lincoln County habitats?
No, no. That's my mistake. I probably shouldn't have put that
Yeah,
in.
they're
Although
west.
I don't know. Maybe it does occur. John Bowman would be the one to ask, of course.
Yeah, they're west of there in Kitticat County, so
Okay.
seems to me it might not be out of the question for that to extend into Lincoln too.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
We'll see.
it's very distinctive when you see it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I remember seeing it for the first time and wondering what it was. Okay. So Melissa's blue, another one I haven't seen much of in recent years, to be honest. But again, you know, this is the type of habitat we should see it in, and now's the time. So definitely a possibility. Western towel blue seems to be having a pretty good year this year. Most habitats that I've been to, you know, that it occurs in. So this would be, you know, around the lakes, a possibility for sure. Silvery blue, as I mentioned, might be a bit late for that. If we do see them, they're not going to be as pristine as this one here. Columbia blue, again, I think I did see Columbia blue already, but I couldn't be sure. But it should definitely be occurring there. Again, it's been out for a few weeks, so it may not look as it may be harder to differentiate. Okay, moving on to Nymphalidae, and these habitats. So, being a monarch man, as you know, I found milkweed in all habitats, and I don't think I'd ever seen milkweed at Rocky Ford before. It was actually hidden amongst the stinging nettles, doing quite well, actually, just hidden. And of course, it wouldn't be hidden to a monarch. So, and the other two sites had milkweed too, less hidden. So, and these are typical places where, you know, the migrating monarchs, which are coming up right this very minute, would find and use and lay their eggs. And so it's certainly not beyond the question, beyond doubt, that we could see a monarch this weekend, particularly with the warm weather. Within the last few days, we've had 6 sightings of monarchs in Oregon and Idaho. Boise is the furthest north, I think, and Eugene in Oregon. So with the coming warm days, they'll be very capable of reaching into Washington. And, you know, I did my annual survey of the Trinity National Forest in late around Memorial Day weekend, and I found eggs of monarchs there. But at that point, there was no sightings in the Pacific Northwest. So since that time, actually we just had one this evening before I came on here. So it's that we're up to 7 now. We're getting them a day at a time. And if it's like last year, within the first 2 weeks of June, we will have 40 or 50 sightings within the Pacific Northwest all suddenly appear just in the space of 14 days. And these are all the colonizers for the summer population. So it will be exciting to see, but and it's quite possible. So we're in the right place at the right time. So there you go. Keep your eyes open for a monarch. But of course, we should also keep our eyes open for viceroys too. They do occur at Rocky Ford, particularly along the creek. One side of Rocky Ford, well, the actual Upper Crab Creek, there's willows growing there, and viceroys occur there. They likely occur at the other 2 sites as well. So the monarch may not be the only orange and black butterfly we should be looking out for. Lorquins, you know, the habitat's right. Willows are around. Definitely possible. I think we've seen this at Rocky Ford before. I'm certain we have. So, but certainly not in the numbers that we saw last year in Ponderay County. Calliope fritillary, Calliope, I can't even say that word anymore. And I can't say fritillary either if I listen to you lot. Fritillary. I put this in because on my survey, I went back exploring other places I'd never been to, and I went to a place called Odessa Crater Trail. I didn't know there were craters at Odessa. It's a great place. I'm sure Bob knows that, and most of you probably know it. But I had explored one of the craters because it had blue irises and that yellow plant. So I was thinking, maybe silver-bordered fritillaries. I didn't see any violets though, but I did find this, and I think I've got the slide here, a Calliope fritillary. There, it just eclosed, but it was crippled. It hadn't eclosed properly. So you can see in the top right-hand corner the extent of its crippled nature. So it couldn't actually fly, but it's to me, it's a Calliope fritillary. It's not Coronis, and so I was amazed that it was there. I mean, so that suggests there was violets in that crater somewhere, and I just didn't see them because this obviously developed on violets. So I guess it is a potential habitat for silver-bordered fritillary too. There's so many places we don't know. You know, that's struck me. I mean, we're not, you know, as a band of Lepidopterists, we're not very large, and so, you know, we're not looking everywhere. Unfortunately, now other naturalists looking and taking pictures of butterflies and putting them on iNaturalist, we have a much better chance of finding things like this. But anyway, I looked at iNaturalist and sure, Calliope fritillary has been recorded in Lincoln County before. Not many, just a handful, but it does occur there. So it's a possibility. And we have seen Calliope at Rocky Ford, although I think when Bob and I were there, we saw, or maybe we were looking for them. I know Melanie's seen them there. And at the time, I didn't look closely enough to, no, I assumed they were Coronis. And I should have looked close. And since then, I've never been able to find one again, but we'd have to assume it was Calliope. Although,
yeah, David, excuse me for butting in, but
sure.
we certainly did see one at least that we really thought was a number of Calliope. And then we saw one that both of us really thought was Coronis. And I wish we'd had a photograph, or dare I say it, about your specimen, but John is skeptical about that being Coronis there. I don't know about Melanie, but I hope people will particularly have their eyes out for Coronis that might be traveling in that direction while you're in that territory. It could be there.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reports on iNaturalist of Coronis around Spokane. I don't know how verified they are, because they're just, I can't remember the picture, how good the pictures were, but there's certainly some reports anyway. But yeah, we should, I mean, that for a while, that was a mission of mine to try and find Coronis or look at the fritillaries at Rocky Ford. So we will get the opportunity to do that this weekend, because, you know, if they haven't emerged, like this one has only just emerged, you know, that we could see greater fritillaries at Rocky Ford and maybe the other places too. So it could be a more bountiful time than I was leading you to believe at the beginning of this. California tortoiseshell is another potential species we could see. It hasn't been, in my view, very common this year in most of the places I've been to, but, you know, who knows. And the mourning cloak, which has been very, very common in most of the habitats, could well be at any of the three places we're going to. I didn't see it the other day, but you know why. And the red admiral bull, of course, and a few people have seen them so far this year, unlike the East where everybody's seen them. I haven't seen one, but plenty of stinging nettles to attract them. So, and the Satai comma, similarly, we could see some of those because of the abundance of nettles. Checker spots, I was surprised I didn't see a sagebrush checker spot on the sunny day that I was there, because the habitat is perfect, of course. So that's definitely a species we could see. I did see my litter crescent at one of the sites. At Rocky Ford, I've actually found larvae there before on thistles. So it's definitely a species we should see there too. Dartwood nymph, well, it's probably a bit early for that. I'm not sure why I put this slide in actually, except, you know, if later on, because of the warmth this weekend, it's possible they could begin emerging. But usually, you know, in a warm year, it's not until about the end of the first week of June that these start appearing, or second week of June. So it might be a little bit too early for that. Then moving on to the skippers, and this is the other one. This is the other special species for Rocky Ford and potentially the other places too. The Garita skipperling, which in most times I've been to Rocky Ford, has been common in exactly the same habitat as the silver bordered. They go hand in hand, and limited to the same small, I can't say marshy area because it's not marshy, but the wetter area. And I didn't see any the other day, but again, that could be a function of the weather. And with the warmth and everything, hopefully we get to see some nice pristine Garita skipperlings just like this one here. And I can't recall, Melanie, but I got a feeling I may have thought that I saw Thymelicus lineola. What's the common name? The introduced skipper, Essex skipper. What is it, Bob? I've forgotten the name.
Yeah, Essex skipper, or the European small
European
skipperling.
European skipper.
Skipperling, it's a skipperling too.
European skipperling. I got a feeling I saw European skipperling at this place as well, but I can't be sure, and I don't So that's something else if we see skipperlings, we need to check that they are Garita, and we can talk about that when we're there. Okay. And then, well, Melanie is the person that's told me that she has seen Pilates Mystic Long Dash at the same spot, in the same wetter area, Melanie?
Yes, right next to it on the Gaillardia.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, and just one?
I saw them on 2 separate years. I think one year I saw only one, and another year I saw two. And there was some discussion among Bob and John and Merrill, and my photos finally went to Andy Warren, and it was confirmed that it's there, which apparently is the furthest south that it's. I think that was your Bob. I think you were thinking that was the habitat was, or the location was too far south, but
Yeah,
then
I raised the question because it wasn't like this photograph. They're good pictures, but they didn't show the underside as definitively as this. I didn't think adequately, but then I'm not Andy Warren. And yeah, I was taken by the fact that they're considerably south of Moses Meadows, though not as far as I was thinking it is. And I mean, of course, I respect your IDs. And once Andy puts his stamp on it, and Jonathan, I'm not going to kvetch anymore, but I just thought it was worth raising the question. We always ought to be skeptical of range extensions and make sure that we can establish them. So again, people watch for it. Try to get a picture like this with a
Yes.
full-on ventral.
Yes. Yeah. So this was at the same time, Melanie, as the silver borders and greeters were flying?
yes, it was. It was
Okay.
about the same time for
Right. Yeah.
years.
That's something else that we should definitely watch for then. That's exciting. Okay. Sandhill skipper, I put that in because the habitats were going to, you know, a very much sort of habitats that you can find the skipper. Northern white skipper, similarly, Lower Crab Creek, it's quite common. So presumably up. I think we have seen this at Rocky Ford before. One of the 20 or 30 species we've seen there. It's always I like this skipper. I mean, it's such a big, robust skipper that it's always a delight to see. And then the common roadside skipper, I just it's a possibility. It's something we don't see very often. We don't look for. You can miss it, but you know we're all going to be looking very intently. So it's a possibility that we could see this. Questions?
Wonderful pictures, David. That last one was a knockout.
Thank you. I thought this is pretty good too. Consider my zoom into the into the eyes of an owl. I like that. Lovely. This is the Rocky Ford owl, who we'll probably see. I mean, there were two chicks there, if you can call them chicks, the gigantic chicks, but they were living there, and I think they still will be there. The mother was there too. She didn't look very happy.
Are they in those trees at the western end of the site by the road?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So maybe we
Nice.
should limit the people going in there too, so we don't scare the owls. Any questions?
Well, David, I think people should also be on the lookout for rarities and expansionists, like
Yes.
the variegated fritillary, which you're one of the few who's seen it in the state, and the peacock. This isn't too terribly far from one of our two or three peacock. I don't mean peacock, I mean buckeye. One of our two or three buckeye records
Peacock.
was
I
quite near
thought
here.
peacock's only in Massachusetts, isn't it?
So I
My
understand.
European peacock that
Yeah,
I grew up with. I mean, God, that I'd probably faint on the spot if I saw a peacock at Rocky
I
Ford.
know it. I know it. But people should look for those two, and
Yeah,
always
Buckeye.
look at every sulfur in case we've got any of the immigrant expansionist sulfur species
Right.
that will be coming into the state more and more. So there could be some. I think you've given a very thorough rundown on the fauna likely to be found, and there can always be some big surprises. For example, one that's only been found once in Washington, two of them found near Ellensburg, is the Rickert's blue or solitary blue,
Right.
Echinargus isola. and they're going to be popping into Washington again. It's one more of the adventitious expansionist mobile species, and this could be a place to find it. So watch those little tiny things, whether it's a roadside or one of those. They're hard to spot, but if you do, you might get some really exciting records. The end.
Okay, any other questions?
No questions. I must have answered everybody's questions. Well, that's good.
Well,
Well,
you've
probably
done such a fabulous job.
one thing I should mention, I guess, is that the first day going to the lakes is typical WABA thing where we drive in and we can just walk as far or as little from the car as you want. I mean, both places there are hikes that you can go for a mile or two, I think, around the lakes. But you can or you don't have to. But on the Sunday with Rocky Ford, to see the silver bordered fritillaries, you've got to walk a mile. And then it's about a half mile back to the car if you go the short way back. So that's the big difference between the 2 days. You have to walk a mile, but you can walk it very slowly, and it's pretty easy, really. And of course, there's butterflies all along the way. And in fact, walking the mile is actually a good part of the whole thing because you see different things at the bottom near the creek than you do at the top near the marshy and the tree area. So it's a whole experience. You need to do the walk, and it's only a mile and a half.
So Donna, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I was wondering, did you see anything in the lizard or snake, categories?
Well, I did see a couple of snakes, but not rattlesnakes. They were very small things that just disappeared very quickly, like racers or something like that. I don't think I saw any lizards, surprisingly. No, no. I mean, you'd think you'd see rattlesnakes there. And I don't know if you've seen any at Rocky Ford, Melanie, but I don't think I have, actually.
I don't think I have either.
No.
I did see there was a raptor in those trees also, where you were saying you saw the
Right.
owls. Do you remember
Yes.
that? And there were bones on the ground beneath the tree.
Yeah, there was a raptor there when I was there too.
I've seen turkeys there as well.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Well, you've done a very, very thorough job, David. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know it's a big effort, so we're very grateful to you for going and scouting and also giving us an idea of what to look for. So thank you so much for what you've done.
You're welcome. It's fun too.
And that owl picture
Wouldn't
just.
do it otherwise.
Okay, well, thank you so much, David, for doing this for us, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody on Friday or this coming weekend anyway. So, okay, well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the field then. And we'll post this as soon as I get it processed and Carolyn posts it. So, okay, thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you, David.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.